Everybody, it's Mo, and today we're going to talk through what I think, at least for me, is the number one unlock I've experienced in productivity over the last decade or so. I'm with Thomas Frank, YouTube star, thought leader, guru around how do you actually build a second brain. We're going to build off all the principles that our mutual friend Tiago Forte has built out in building a second brain in his second book, The Pear Method. High value content, but the nuts and bolts of actually how you do it are super interesting, and they're not talked about very often, certainly not in our relationship development ecosystem. So we're not only going to talk about why it's important, we're actually going to dig into how to set up a second brain database. Thomas and I are ready to share our actual screens. So to actually show you our own, which I think is super interesting. And we're even going to get into a little bit of a technology debate on like, hey, what apps are the best for this or for that, things like that. Thomas, I'm going to lean on you a little bit more than me for that.
Sure.
And my goal on this one is that this is massively valuable, highly practical, and has so darn much utility that people are going to want to watch it over and over again. So pretty cool. Thomas, maybe I kick it over to you now. Do you want to just describe a smidge about who you are, just in the small chance people don't know who you are? And then let's get into like, hey, why are second brains important? Go for it.
Yeah. So, hi, everybody. My name is Thomas Frank. I'm a content creator. I'm a huge nerd around Notion and also a startup founder. I've taken on more hats over the years. So one of my biggest focuses right now is building a new tool called Flylighter, which is a super powerful web clipper and idea capture tool for Notion. We've got a browser that can let you like highlight things on the web, easily capture articles to Notion and soon other destinations as well. So one of my big passions is just making idea capture and information capture frictionless. I think about it all day long. And I also think about Notion all day long. I started making content about that about 5 years ago. And at this point, we have a YouTube channel called Thomas Frank Explains that teaches everything about Notion from the absolute basics all the way up to automations and Notion API and all like the high-end stuff that people want to learn if they want to like literally build their own systems. Started building that about 5 years ago. We have about 230,000 subscribers there. We've made a few free and premium Notion templates, which are basically our main revenue at this point. We're also working on content for teams who want to start bringing in their team operations into Notion because we've done a lot of that with our own team. People on my staff have worked with other teams. And yeah, so that's a big focus. I've made a lot of YouTube content on productivity and organization as well. So excited to be here, excited to talk second brains.
Well, and you've got tens of millions of views. Like you, whenever I watch one of your videos, it's one of those that I usually pause, rewind, watch an extra part. So I think what's interesting about having you on the show, you are my number one choice to dig into this. And I've even had Tiago on the show. It was great. I'll put the link in the show notes. It was awesome. And we really talk about why to build second brains. I think where you can build off of that and even add so much more is how to do it. So some people might not even know what Notion is. Notion's easily the leader when it comes to what second brain, air quotes around that, is about putting everything you know in one place that's queryable. In some apps, even where you can use AI to start to synthesize things and summarize, to be able to put things in there easily. Notion's by far the most robust and the leader in the space. It was what Evernote was supposed to be. All the old timers on the show remember Evernote 15 years ago, and it was just a mess. It just never really became what I think it could have been. Notion sort of taken that over. And Thomas, I think what's going to be interesting about today is, you're going to show what you do in Notion. I use Craft, a little simpler version. But I think what'll be cool is you can share all the knowledge you've learned in doing this in Notion, but you'll be able to talk about the strategies and ways. If they have another database or another tech they want to use, they can do that too. Maybe we go to what's the value? So you've helped, I guess, hundreds of thousands of people at this point, build out millions, build out a second brain database. Why is this important? Why should the audience even care?
Yeah, so let's get into the second brain nuts and bolts before we get into Notion nuts and bolts specifically. So I always used the term productivity system. In fact, I had a course on Skillshare that I think it's on airplanes now, apparently, where I made this very basic course on building a system of tools where you can externalize the things that come into your life. So that means tasks, events, notes. If you're very focused on relationships, maybe you have a contact database or a CRM, whatever comes into your life that you don't want to slip through the cracks, you need to have some sort of external tool to put it in. That can be a paper notebook. That can be a calendar on your wall. My mom still uses a wall calendar. Or for most of us, it's going to be some kind of app. And the app you choose matters way less than the fact that you use the system you have set up. I kind of have a few different criteria here. As long as it's easy to get stuff into it wherever you are, it's easy to organize it at least later on, or maybe while you're capturing things, and it's easy to find stuff later and keep the system organized and clear of cruft. Those are my 4 main criteria for a second brain. Whatever tool you want to use or combination of tools you want to use is perfect. And that's actually kind of why Tiago has that very strict para methodology, projects, areas, resources, archive, is because I think he's one of those guys that puts a lot of tools together. And I think most of us, even if we are trying to go all in with something like Notion, are going to end up with additional ancillary tools, like say a calendar app or our own computer's file system, maybe even a file box in the corner for stuff you just can't digitize very easily. Whatever you want to use, whatever combination you want to use, you just want to make sure that you follow those 4 rules. Easy to capture, easy to organize, easy to find, easy to keep clean.
I love it. And let me give you some examples. So this happened to me when I was trail running, and I just ripped my ankle on a rock. I just turned my ankle to one of those where it's black and blue. Like, I'm not going to be able to work out for like a month. I drive home. I hobble out of the woods. I drive home. I'm feeling sorry for myself. I'm going through the DAPTA, the change management thing, like denial, whatever the APTAs are. I'm somewhere in the beginning, like I'm not happy. I sit on my couch and I had ordered building a second brain. It's sitting there. And I just went from, I just think I was like I felt like I was on my deathbed, to excited. Over about an hour, I started digging into, hey, this is really interesting. There's this possibility of putting everything in one place. Well, even then, I didn't realize how much upside there was. So over the next couple of months, I started throwing things into Craft, which was the database I chose. And I didn't realize, Thomas, how I had stuff fragmented all over the place. So what are the things I need to run a business and help my clients? Well, I need client notes. I need details about what the event's going to look like in a month when I speak at the partner meeting. I need all my past agendas from business development calls, notes, agendas from workshops. I need speech outlines. I need content, all the hundreds of pieces of research that we use that are the underpinnings of everything we train. Grow Big Training and the Snowball System, our upcoming book, Give to Grow. All those things were in different places. They were in PowerPoint slides. They were in Excel files. They were in emails. They were in a rudimentary second brain I had in Apple Notes, which was just a pile of junk. And by not having all those in one place, it took friction to find them. I couldn't query them. I couldn't find the things I wanted. I violated all 4 of your rules, Thomas, all of them.
Well, I think the secret is most of us do at some point.
Yeah. But oh my gosh, over a couple months, as I started getting these into one place, I could find something in a second, and I wasn't fumbling around searching. And then you could start to compare. My productivity just went through the roof by doing this. So is that something similar to what you see as people start implementing your systems, that productivity that we don't realize because it's 30 seconds here and 5 minutes there? We don't realize the unlock in putting things into one place, and then what we can create or be effective at if once we already have that built.
Yes. So what we typically see is you have that increase in productivity because when you have the system and when you have it tended, you are able to see what needs to be done. It's easier to prioritize, and you don't have that friction, like you said, in trying to find things. Is that in an email, that kind of thing? The other thing is when you have the system, stuff doesn't slip through the cracks. So like a lot of my career has been in helping students. So I've talked to many a student, high school student, college student, a friend of mine who's like, I'll just remember to do that. And then they forget to go to like a final exam or something. With an external system, with that set of tools, there's no forgetting unless you forget to check it, which should be easy. That's a habit. If you externalize your events, you're going to know when they're coming up. If you externalize your tasks, you're going to know what you need to do. If you externalize your notes, you're not going to, I guess you will forget things, but you know you have a path toward your own place where you've stored an external reference to those things. So you don't have to worry so much about remembering everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And just as a tangible example, I just looked the other day, I'm 682 hours in on a project to launch our next book, comes out in August, called Give to Grow. And I cannot believe how much faster the writing process was when I could query one database and go find a quote or a turn of phrase that I had captured, or quote from a thought leader, or gosh, I think there was a research paper on such and such. and I can just go grab these things at a moment's notice. And because they sync across all my devices, I could get a thought on a walk and look it up and go, oh yeah, I want to incorporate that in chapter 6, or
Yep.
it's on my laptop, or it's on my iPad. Once you get this set up, everything's everywhere and it's instantly findable and queryable. I loved your word externalized, because our brains are just not good at remembering everything, especially details.
Mhm.
And this lets you remember everything, especially details.
Yep. Yeah, it's so interesting. Like, and there's so many different philosophies on this. For instance, like I think it was Aristotle thought that writing was bad.
Tell me more.
So he thought that writing was bad because he thought that it would like literally make people's ability to remember things go away. But there's like that counterbalances against the fact that we just have so much information now in our daily lives. It's not like I have, work in the fields all day and then maybe a few things to remember. I have a zillion things to remember. There's like 3 meetings with people next week, different locations, people that I haven't seen in months, like all this kind of stuff. So yeah, at this point, I don't think it's practical to try to remember everything, which is why this system is so useful.
Yeah, that's a great way to summarize that. Well, maybe what we do next is maybe we share what we personally do.
Sure.
Maybe because I feel like your content is more broad. Maybe you share your screen first and walk through how you build your second brain. Then I'll go and try to clean up on more like some relationship development and business development stuff, something like that. How's that sound?
Perfect. Yeah. So let me see if I can find the share button here.
This is
Oh, there's a
exciting.
presentation option now as well.
Ooh.
So let me see if I can just do entire screen. There we go.
Yeah, this is exciting.
And we're
And
going to
then
get a big
for
window.
if folks are on audio, Thomas, I prepped a lot. We're going to try to like talk through everything. So if you're barreling down the highway, it'll make sense. But this is one of those shows where you listen if you're on audio, but it may make sense to come back and watch too. Thomas, keep going. This is great.
Yeah, so I'm going to do a little bit of narration here. For the people watching, I will also note that because I build things, my personal workspace is like organized with the things that I'm actually using and then also experiments. So you might see like 2 instances of Task Manager in my favorites and go, why is that there? Well, some of those are, I'm literally building systems for other people, testing those out myself.
Yep.
So what I have is a system called Ultimate Brain. I've labeled mine as Thomas's Brain, and this basically just has all the different personal productivity views that I could need, including a task manager, a note-taking system, project manager, and then it actually incorporates Tiago Forte's Para system, where we have projects, areas, resources, and archives.
Yep.
You said he's been on the show before, right?
Yep.
So I will leave it up to Tiago to deeply explain Para, or you can go read the Para Method book.
I would
But
actually.
essentially-
Why don't you? Yeah, give us
You want me to
give
explain
us
it?
the 30-second version. Yeah, because I think it's super. Because this was an unlock for me, especially around archive, which I did not use. And
Okay.
if you don't, like, everything was just like it felt like a pile of things on top of a table when you leave all the old stuff on there. Anyway, so yeah, walk through Para because I think it's a big unlock.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to go over to my demo version because I know there's content in here that I know I will be able to show all the content in all of the part of the demo.
Yeah.
So basically, Para is a way of organizing everything in your life into specific lists that are based on actionability. So a project is going to be a list that contains actions that are all working towards the project's goal. An area is a more like holistic area of your life that you are maintaining. So part of your area could be like house. Another part of your area could be health. There's going to be information you collect about your health. There's going to be medical records, all that kind of stuff. But there's also often going to be actions you have to take. So that is like the point of an area. I think he calls it like a standard to be maintained over time.
Yeah.
A resource. Go ahead.
I don't have the exact definition he uses. I think of an area as a project that doesn't end.
Yes, I do 100% as well.
Yeah.
In fact, I want to go to the dashboard because I show areas there too. And that's where we'll get into where I differ from Tiago because I'm such a Notion nerd, because he keeps them separate. So there's another thing he calls resources. And resources I have listed kind of here. These are more like interests. If you were using a traditional note-taking app like Apple Notes, you might just call that like a tag or a folder. So if you're interested, as I am, in AI or in iOS development or programming, you might have just resource folders where you either take notes, or if you are maybe using a web clipper like Flylighter, you could just grab stuff from the web, highlights, articles, videos that you want to watch, just goes into your resource folders. And that way you're like, okay, I don't have time to watch this video right now, or maybe I want to come back to it later. I know it's now in my resource folder. And then archive is a sort of catch-all place for things that are no longer relevant to your life. Ideally, you take things out of the other 3 folders and you put them into the archive when you're done with them. Also, this is important, if you ever feel like I'm overwhelmed, there's just so much stuff, like I've let my system go, there's too many projects, there's too many resources, you are allowed to move all that stuff into the archive and start over from scratch, because the archive isn't going to go away. It will never delete itself. And this was actually kind of like a revelation to me, because when I was trying to switch from Evernote to Notion back in the day, I was like, oh, I need to find a way to bring all my 3,000, 4,000 notes from Evernote into Notion. And I think I ran across Tiago's stuff back then and was like, no, you don't. Just just start using the new tool. And if you need to move something over, like, it's not going away. Right. So I never actually moved all my my Evernote notes over. It's just over time I've been like, oh, hey, I had that great recipe for this Italian like Tuscan soup. I know it's in Evernote. Let me go grab it. I'm going to move it over to Notion now because I know I actually need that. So that's sort of like the idea behind Para. And what I've built inside of Notion is essentially a system that gives me those 4 folders, as it were. So we have projects, we have resources, we have areas. I can go into, say, like this garage gym build out project here and see any tasks that are related to the project, any notes as well. And I can even pull in resources. So say I have like a whole resource of design inspiration or a whole resource about home gyms where I've been collecting stuff from the web. I could pull that into this project just so I have all the information relevant to the project inside that one page. And this will probably start to give people a bit of an idea of why Notion can be so useful, because we can build out our own systems that put the right information in the right place where you need it. It's all very contextual. So I guess I'll use that as an opportunity to talk about how I sort of differ in my philosophy around Para from Tiago. And I think, Mo, you'll agree with me, because you just said like an area is sort of an area of life that will contain projects. I 100% agree with that. So if I go into, say, health, we've built out a system where an area is basically just a dashboard for that area of your life. And that area could contain projects, but it could also contain resources. It could also contain goals, which is another system that I built into this, because I feel that goals can be different from projects in that you often don't know exactly what steps you need to take that are going to get you there. They can be more open-ended. So this basically just gives you a way to put resources and projects inside of an area. And that's very different from the way that Tiago does it, because Tiago is like, the 4 lists are sacrosanct. They don't live inside each other. They're all top level. And that makes sense if you're trying to build a system that works anywhere. If it works, like if you want to have it in your computer folder system, you want to have it in Apple Notes, you want to have it in a lot of older school tools that don't give you the ability to build your own databases and show your own views, it 100% makes sense. In Notion, we can have the best of both worlds, because I can show projects and I can show resources that live inside of an area, but separately from that, I can also just show those resources on their own here on a dashboard or in a resources page. I don't have to give them an area. They can just exist totally out on their own. The same can be true for projects. So that's one of the reasons I love Notion, because we can basically give ourselves that optionality. It's like, you don't have to put a project inside of an area, but if it makes sense to, well, why wouldn't you want to give yourself that ability?
Yeah, 100%. And Tiago, again, everybody, I'll put the link to our interview in the show notes. We almost got into a back and forth where he's like, an area is this and a project's that. And I'm like, oh, I think of it differently. That's sort of the beauty of this, is you can flex a little bit and make it your own. Don't you think? Like for me, areas are like investing, health, family, being a good father, husband, exercise, like all those kind of things I can throw out there. Technically, there could be projects in there around exercise where I'm gearing up for a big national ultimate tournament or something. And there's really specific things I'm trying to hit. But I've got other things in there, like an Andrew Huberman podcast episode or documentation of when I did certain dietary things. I had 100% recovery the next day and got more hydrated or whatever. So that can be things I want to grab forever. And they can be things that are a bit shorter term, but they're around exercise, nutrition, things like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's similar to what you're saying. Yeah.
Like to me, if I'm building out a garage gym, that's a health thing in my life.
Yeah, there you go. But it's a project within this project. Yeah, same idea.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, one of the big unlocks was the darn archive. As simple as it is, I wasn't doing it in Evernote. In Evernote, what would happen is I would just start to stock up all kinds of things in one big pile, that weren't stratified in the 4 areas. the worst part was not having an archive, because stuff I don't even need anymore is clutter and getting in the way of what the things I do need. And moving things to archive just keeps it so beautiful and clean. I feel like it only has what I need in it. But if I do need to go remember that thing that I threw in archive 5 years later, I know it's there.
Yeah, I mean, that's the real principle there, is that you know it is not deleted, it's not gone from your system, but it's also out of your hair when it's not relevant.
Yep.
And I realize, like, I think some people can still be hesitant to do this because they're like, oh, what if I throw it in the archive and it gets like lost? But I think a lot of people already do a version of this without even realizing it. Because I've seen a lot of people who will have hundreds or even 1,000 emails in their inbox, and then they'll go through and star the ones they know they need to take care of. And it's like, okay, you just turned your inbox into the archive essentially. So why not flip the script? Just treat the inbox like it's supposed to be treated. It's the place with things to be processed that are important. And if there's a zillion emails in your inbox right now, declare email bankruptcy. Archive them all. You can go through them if you need to. They're not being deleted, and your inbox can be just for the things you know you need to answer now.
Yeah. Brilliant. It's so brilliant. Okay, I want to talk about Flylighter, because one of the most important principles of having this database is making it really easy to put things in there.
Yes.
There's a little bit of a lift the first time where you've got things, well, at least for me, I had stuff in all these places like I talked about, and I've got to go find them and put them in. I even had all of the different research papers that we've cited that go in all of our materials. I had that in an Excel file, but that's not in the right format to like bring it into Craft. So I actually had a college student just spend a day or two. I just paid them by the hour. They were happy to like put stuff in more of a true database format that I can input. So I found in the bowels of Reddit somewhere, Thomas, I found this like iOS web clipper where I can be in Safari. And if I find an article I like, for example, I can go down in the share and it automatically shoots it into Craft, the database. I'll show mine in a little bit.
Oh, cool.
But it's great. But what you've built is so much better. I mean, you've got tools that will take audio recordings, transcribe them, and put those into Notion. You've got tools that can grab an article in the copy and put it in Notion, or a YouTube video and put it in Motion. Like, you're taking it to a whole nother level. I just haven't made the transition to Notion yet, so I don't know exactly all I can do. But my point is, getting things in with a couple taps is one of the most powerful ways of having the second brain database. So can you just talk about Flylighter and like what it does and how people should think about using it?
Yeah. So the Flylighter that we're launching this month is the best web clipper for Notion that you've ever seen. For example, right now, the official Notion web clipper can only capture the title of the page. And then I think there might be a little like area to put your own note. That's it.
Yeah. That's horrible.
Say you want to tag it with a property, or you want to, relate it to another page in Notion, or you want to give it a date, any kind of property that Notion supports. Their web clipper doesn't do that. So ours does. But in addition to letting you select those properties, Flylighter essentially lets you build out what we call flows. They're basically forms where you can automatically fill those properties or choose to fill them manually on a flow-to-flow basis. So for example, in mine, I've got one for inbox that's just going to fill the title of the page, the URL, and I even have it set to something called instant capture. So I can even do a little keyboard shortcut and just instantly capture any page I'm on to Notion in like under a second. For other ones, like say design and UI and UX resources that I want to send specifically to my design resource in my second brain, I have another flow that's going to apply that page, that tag page inside my system. And I can run that one. So the resource I'm capturing skips the inbox. It just goes exactly where it needs to go right there. So this is sort of extending upon the classic like getting things done inbox concept, where David Allen's like, have an inbox. It's just a default place you chuck stuff throughout the day, and then you need to process it later on. I think that's great. I think everyone should have it. But if you have tools that allow you to capture things where they're supposed to go and bypass that inbox, that saves you a lot of work. So that is a huge part of what we're building with Flylighter. We also have our own custom algorithm for, say, identifying the entire article of a page. We have highlight tools. We're actually shipping something that I've never seen before. This is one of the things I wanted when I first started building Flylighter, is you can capture highlights, like snippets of text, quotes from an article to Notion. But then when you come back to the page, they will stay highlighted. And I think for researchers, for people who are going through a lot of information, this is amazing because it means you don't have to capture an entire article to Notion. It means you can capture the highlights you care about. And if you want to contextually go and see what those highlights look like in the full context of the article, now you can. and they are highlighted on the page still. So that's the web clipper component. And right now, Notion is the first destination that we're launching with, but we're not setting out to build just a Notion web clipper. We're setting out to build the ultimate idea and knowledge capture tool for the tools you already use. So one of the reasons we've spent a long time building this is it's built upon a very modular and flexible system of components. One system is input. That could be web clipper. That could be voice capture, could be camera, anything in the future. We have a system of transformation plugins that basically take information from the current sources and make it into a standardized format. And then we have output plugins. So first output plugin is going to be Notion. Maybe we'll be able to do Craft in the future. Maybe we'll be able to do like Slack, Discord. So you want to run a flow that sends a really useful resource to your team in Slack. Basically, what I noticed is that most of the quick capture tools on the market, basically all of them, focus on getting the things you capture into yet another tool. So like Pocket or Instapaper, it's into another tool, right? And if there are export tools, they're usually afterthoughts. And I wanted the export to the system you're already using to be the first class citizen in a capture tool. So we're not trying to build another thing where you're like, this is your reading list. It's no, we're just building the best pipeline you've ever seen to instantly capture information, ideas, knowledge to whatever system you are using.
Yeah. And if I just to pop up a level, easily the number one benefit of a second brain for me has been getting everything in one place that I can query. Easily the number two benefit has been this silly web clipper thing I found in Reddit that I got petrified it's not going to work with some new iOS upgrade because I don't know how to do it. But what is exciting about what you're doing is you're building this more robust thing that now it works great for Notion, but it's going to work for other things. So where do people get Flylighter? And I'll put that down in the show notes, and what does it cost and things like that.
Flylighter.com is the website. Right now, there's a waitlist sign up. We're going to be launching our public beta very soon. The way we're going to do it is kind of the Obsidian model at first, where right now we haven't yet built out the features that are going to be paid. Eventually, we will have paid features like syncing all of your flows and capture history across devices, mobile app access, voice recording, transcription, AI add-ons, and that kind of thing. We've been focused on nailing that underlying structure. So everything we've built right now is going to be free. And then we'll have like a supporter tier where people can pay if they want to have access to like internal early builds. If they want to have access to like an internal Discord, they want to basically support development, because we want to build a sustainable, basically bootstrapped company that gives people the ability to do what they want with their own data. So that's the main focus at first. Well, and I think we're going to be launching at least within the next 2 weeks, at the very least.
Well, by the time this even podcast is out in the world,
likely
it'll be
launched
live. So yeah, Flylighter, flylighter.com, and we'll put that in the show notes. And lighter is Lighter, right? FLY.
It's like highlighter.
Flylighter. I love it. Well, this is so important because, like I said, putting everything in one place is huge, queryable. You never lose anything. You can just the amount of time you save, it all just transfers right to productivity. But getting things in there after that is so important. So I've never heard of another tool like what you're building. So I'm going to be paying attention too. So back to the second brain construct. I know I steered you over to that sample database or sort of your demo. Was there more you can show? I'd like to go a touch deeper into your brain because I just think it's super unique. So could you show your screen again and show the real Thomas? I know you can't show everything, but could you show the real Thomas Frank second brain and how you think about it as just like a leader and a business owner and a creator yourself?
Yeah, so I'll show a few things off. So I work with a team as well. So I have my personal second brain, and then I've got my like sort of team systems as well. So, and I honestly try to keep things fairly simple. I don't tend to build out super complex dashboards for myself. So for example, my task manager is not that crazy. I've got a task inbox. Again, this is the spot where I can even bring on my little cursor circle. This is the spot where I dump tasks that don't yet have a project. If I'm just like, I need to get something done, it goes to the inbox. And again, that's principle number one. Make it easy and obvious to get something into the system. Also make it easy and obvious to organize things if I need to. So I've got a schedule section here. And a cool system or a cool feature that I'm building in as an experiment right now is I have a little checkbox called My Day right here. And if I click My Day, it adds it to my today list, even if it's not currently due today. That's a little bit of a thing I pulled from Microsoft to do. So they have a feature where I think you can star tasks and they'll go to this My Day section. And it's just sort of a way where you can go through your task manager and say, okay, here are the things I want to work on today. They're not necessarily due today, but I want to work on them today. And that sort of harkens back to the GTD concept of a calendar and a next actions list. Calendar items need to be done on their due date, and next action items are, this is the next thing I need to do for this project. Doesn't necessarily have a due date, but I want to work on it next. So that's on my day as well. And then at the end of the day, I can hit this little automation called Clear My Day. It's called a button in Notion, and it'll just basically uncheck anything that is checked as my day. So I can clear this list out and I can build a today list for myself tomorrow. And then I've got my projects here. So right now, the project I'm doing is design upgrades to Ultimate Brain. There are some new Notion features that recently launched, like this ability to put your checkboxes to the left of your tasks like this. That used to be impossible. So we're going through and updating our templates to take advantage of these new features.
Well,
and like I showed before,
stop for a second and share what Ultimate Brain is, because I think a lot of people might not know.
Ultimate Brain is the best second brain system for Notion. So basically, Notion is a system of, I want to say almost like Lego blocks for productivity. You can build databases, you can build to-do lists, you can write, you can do all kinds of stuff. Out of the box, you basically have to do everything yourself. So templates basically allow creators like me to build systems and then share them with other people. Ultimate Brain is a template that comes with this task manager, comes with my note-taking system, comes with the para system built in, and then it comes with a few other special features like a recipe book where like my wife and I have our recipes for cooking, like book tracker if you want to do book notes, and then some useful dashboards, like one for planning your day. We have like just a general purpose dashboard where it shows sort of everything from the system in a more compact view. Pretty much just gives you access to everything you would need for personal productivity in one system.
So if somebody did want to start with Notion and wanted to just have a template, they drop right in and there's actually not a blank page, but like this is the way to start. That is what Ultimate Brain is.
Yeah, if you want like a fully built out productivity system for you. We also have free templates. So if you just want a task manager, we have a free one of that. If you just want a note-taking system, I think the real value in Ultimate Brain is that all those systems are tied into each other. So for example, you get this feature where I open up my Ultimate Brain Design Updates project and I can add notes directly into it. And those notes are going to be related to the project. Same with tasks. So that integration gives you, again, just all the context you need for what you're doing in the place where you're doing it.
So this is just like the fast track to success. Like just grab the best template out there. Yeah. In that, so you've got the free templates, but you sell Ultimate Brain and it's not much though. How much is the template?
It's $129 one time. And that comes with access to our community. It comes with basically unlimited support, all kinds of stuff.
And where do people go if they want the free templates or to just buy this?
If you want to go to get free templates, thomasjfrank.com, and then there's just a Notion templates link up in the header of the site. And then the Ultimate Brain specifically is thomasjfrank.com/brain. Check out the free templates as well. I would say like people who specifically want just the shortcut, Brain is great for that. But between my free templates and all the content that I put up on YouTube, the tutorials and build guides and everything, you can learn to build everything here for free. Basically, what I sell is shortcuts and support.
Yeah, I can remember one time I watched one of your videos and I just got like, I just need to buy it. But I wasn't in Notion yet, so it's killing me. Right. Okay, this is super helpful. Okay, so keep going.
Yeah, so this is like the task manager. I'm currently moving to a new copy of Ultimate Brain as I make these changes. So I can show you my previous copy here for notes, because it has all my note content. So with notes, I've built like this notes dashboard. And I've got, again, an inbox for notes. If I have an idea for a note or I want to take a voice note, which as you can probably see here, I have AI transcription for most of these. I take a lot of voice notes. They go to my inbox. There's also a web clips section. So anything that I'm clipping from the web, I actually separate out into a different tab there. And then I can mark things as favorites. So say this code snippets note here, it's something that I access quite a lot. So I want to mark that as a favorite and keep it in my favorite section. This is just like useful code snippets I use when programming. And then we've got access to areas and resources. So my design resource is a good example here. I've been recently just inhaling design information like I'm drinking from a fire hose because I've been building out Flylighter's new website. So all of this stuff is stuff that I clipped from Flylighter itself into my design resource. And this helps me to keep my browser a little bit more organized because I'm the kind of person who will just open up a zillion tabs because I want to just drink it all in. And then at the end of the day, I'm like, I need to save it somehow. So I can just save everything here into this resource.
Well, this is a great application of Flylighter. So then you can query. Here's the thing. Pulling this all together, queryable database, everything in one place, easy to put it in there with Flylighter. So you could go back and query all that because you could remember later, wasn't there an article that showed how to properly design curves in a box? Or wasn't there an article that showed the exact layout that is most pleasing to the eye? Or what, like you could look into that, right?
Yes, I could. So here in like the web clips, I knew like I had one thing about accessible design. I can just search for Ally and there it is right there. Accessible color palettes.
Amazing.
I won't show the actual Notion search because that might pull up confidential information. But like if you just pull up Command P, you can search across your entire workspace and you'll be able to do the same thing.
And that's awesome. Yeah, exactly. And then the AI transcription, you updated your old, like a billion people watched it YouTube video with the more streamlined way to do AI transcription. And tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so essentially I have a system where I can open an app on my phone that records my voice. I can record pretty much as long as I want. I've sometimes talked for an hour. When I hit done, it will send that recording to Dropbox, and then I've built an automation that will automatically take the recording, will transcribe it almost perfectly, and then I'm actually personally using Claude now, but you could use ChatGPT to summarize it and create lists here. So let me find a good example here, effective task management strategies. So this was me talking for almost 20 minutes here. And I've got a summary. I have the entire transcript of what I said just right here, which is quite a lot. And then I've got main points, stories and examples, references and citations, action items. I think this one's actually often quite useful. Arguments and areas for improvement. I basically ask the AI, like, what might somebody say against what I said? And then I've got some of my own little experimental beta features down here, like performance logging. So I can see that to process 20 minutes of audio, transcribe, summarize, all that stuff, it took 40 seconds, which is just incredible to me. Like I can basically just dump anything and everything out of my head while I'm driving, while I'm walking, whatever it is. And it's going to be in Notion in like 40 seconds, which is just, it still like blows my mind every single day. This is probably my favorite thing that I've ever built.
And I'm blown away by it. I got a text from Chad Cannon, my friend, you may know, he's running Donald Miller's business now and ran Michael Hyatt's for years. And he texted me it was like a month ago. He's like, do you know this guy named Thomas Frank? He's got this thing that lets you transcribe. I'm like, yeah, I've seen it. I haven't done it yet, but I've got it. He's like, oh man, it's amazing. I spent the whole day setting everything up. He was like devouring. So he's one of the best thought leaders I know of anybody on the planet about scaling businesses. And he was just going on and on about how great your stuff is. So I could think like for our audience, they have to write client alerts. They have to give a speech. They have to write a chapter in a journal. They have to give a pitch to a client and they're trying to figure, and that's high stakes. They're trying to figure out what they're going to say. So they could take that AI transcription tool and just go for a walk and talk, get everything out of their head, and then have the tool itself summarize their main points, arguments, everything.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it. I think what you just said specifically, go for a walk, is what really makes it great. Because I don't know about you, I think so well when I'm out for a walk.
Oh yeah, way better.
So people just assume I'm talking on the phone if I'm like out in the city walking by people, but I'm just talking to myself.
That's actually funny. I didn't think about how weird it would feel.
Right? Like I went through this, I'm like, wow, I feel weird talking to myself. And then I realized anybody I pass is only going to hear like a few words from what I'm saying, and they're just going to assume that I'm talking on the phone to somebody. So, okay, I'm not embarrassed at all. I'll just talk to myself all day long.
And I almost don't even care because it's so productive. So where do people get that? Now, I know they have to do some setup, right? But you've got that all documented, how to create it, right?
Yeah, far less setup than there used to be. Because I think the first video that's almost at 1 million views, that was like, okay, we're going to build this step by step together.
I started doing it on a Saturday and I just quit. But the new version's pretty fast, right?
Yes, the new version's way faster, also like incredibly more capable. I think I spent the most time trying to figure out like how to push it to its limits in terms of how long of files you can upload. And I've gotten it to transcribe and summarize a 4-hour file in under 5 minutes, which is pretty incredible. So on my website, maybe we can link to this if there's show notes or something, but on my website, there's like a Learn Notion up in the top, and then there's a Notion automation page that you can click on. And there is like this take notes with your voice article on that page. It's also on my YouTube channel as well. I think it's like take notes with your voice with ChatGPT and Notion.
You know what I can do is I have the exact link because I didn't know you had updated it. So I had the old link in my database and Chad sent me the new link. So I can go back and grab that and I'll put it in the show notes for everybody.
I just realized I can also show it. So yeah, just learn Notion and Notion automation, and then it's right there. Ultimate speech to text note-taking guide. So
bingo.
This is the more updated video. And yeah, like I think with the first version, I didn't know as much about PipeDream, which is the automation tool that I use to build this. It's kind of like Zapier. So I had to like show people how to build it step by step. And then I got really into it and realized like you can build custom components on PipeDream with code and then just share them with people. So it's almost like I can build software for people and just share it.
Unbelievable. So total time, what do you think the total time invested is to build out that tool?
To set this up for yourself?
Yeah.
If you already have Notion set up, like I think you could do it in under 10 minutes.
Okay.
It's super quick. It's just gonna, like I would say if you don't watch my video, you just go through the article and just do it yourself. Yeah, it's very quick.
That's awesome. Would it connect to a different type of second brain database, or does it have to go to Notion?
So here's where we get a little bit technical. The first thing I'll say is we're building this into Flylighter. So once we get Flylighter's iOS app out, we're going to be building this just into the app, and you'll be able to just use it very, very easily. Again, selling the shortcut.
That's going to be huge.
The other nice thing with building it into Flylighter is because in Flylighter you can build different flows. Like say, I want to have this voice note go to this folder. I want to have this voice note eventually go to Slack or something like that. You'll have that optionality. Right now, it just works on Dropbox folders. So I use an app called RecUp on iOS. It's the only app I've ever found that will let you auto upload the file when you stop recording instead of having to go through that annoying share thing that most apps make you do.
Yeah.
Which means I can basically only upload to one folder, and I can basically only just send my AI transcriptions to one destination. So in the future, there'll be far more optionality around that. But other than that, what were you asking about? I think I got lost my train of thought.
Well, if I wanted, I haven't moved over to Notion yet, so I could maybe use that AI transcription thing to go to Dropbox, and then at worst, I could copy and paste it in or something.
I forgot I'm sharing my screen, so I can narrate a little bit and sort of show you what I do here. So this is my version of the workflow here, and I'll just show it really quickly to kind of show you what I actually do here.
I see. So this is the automation in PipeDream, sort of like Zapier, but yep.
This is the automation in PipeDream, and most people would only see the first two actions here. There's trigger, and then there's Notion voice notes. That's really it. And that is what's going to create the page in Notion. It's going to send everything to Notion. But I wanted to show this off because what I did is in the results, there's a little results thing at the end of the automation. It basically exports whatever you want to export. I export everything. So the full transcript is there. Everything is in there, including the summary, including like literally any detail you want. So if you take a little bit of extra time to learn PipeDream, you can do what I've done here and just add extra steps to your workflow. You're like, well, I don't want to send it to Notion. Let me just send it to Slack. Let me just send it to whatever other app they support. And it's something where you'd have to be sort of digging in and getting your hands dirty right now. But all that information is there. So anybody who's willing to learn and tinker with it can send stuff to any other destination.
Yeah, this is killer. I just feel like that's one of the next things I really want to just take a few moments and build out, because that ability to talk, have AI summarize it, give you counterpoint, like here's the thing you might have missed. All that is just, it's amazing. There you go. So you got Dropbox.
Yeah. I don't see Craft on their list of apps. So I need to see if Craft has an API, because if they do, then maybe we can have Craft as a supported destination in the future.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I may not stick with Craft just because Notion's so much more powerful. Well, actually now is probably a good time for me to share my screen, and I'll show Craft versus Notion, and this might be fun for folks. So let's do this.
Plus, I'm curious to see how you're doing things.
Yeah, let's do it. This is fun. All right. So we're sharing. And let me just move my window around so I can actually see what we're doing.
Got lots of Will Durant.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Have you read Lessons of History?
I haven't read his work, but I've listened to a lot of hardcore history, and he quotes Will Durant so much. Oh man. So Will Durant and his wife Ariel, they're passed away, but they wrote like the history of sort of Western civilization, but of course Western interacts with everybody. So it's like, I don't know how many tens of thousands of pages it is. He did one book called Lessons of History, which was a 100-page summary of how people act, basically. Interesting.
It's mind-blowing.
I want to read that.
Yeah, it's so good. So anyway, I went down the rabbit hole with that, and I originally had watched, this is my inbox, basically, everybody. So we're in craft. Here's the inbox. These are things that I need to, basically put somewhere at some point. And it's been a couple of weeks since I cleared this out. I don't know if I have it here, but there's somebody else who did a summary of Will Durant's summary, and it was really oriented around founders, and it was really quite good. And I loved that. So then I bought the audiobook. And one thing that I'll do is I'll type my own notes sometimes, but using that little web clipper, if there's a book out there that's reasonably popular, somebody else has summarized it.
Yep.
So then I can go start with that. And then with a couple taps using the annoying share stuff we talked about, I can throw that summary into craft. Sometimes I'll put a couple in there, and then I'll usually put some, summary. I didn't do it on this exact note, but I'll usually then put some of the most important things I found out of the book to be there. So that's sort of a cool little hack people can use. Have you done that too?
This is super cool. So I see you have multiple lessons of history summaries. Did you find multiple summaries online and just clip them all?
That's exactly what I did.
Nice.
That's exactly what I did. Because people summarize things in different ways. Like James Clear did a summary of it. It was just more like his just raw notes. Other people organized it by chapter. And I wanted it both. I don't even feel like, I think since everything's so queryable in a second brain database, I don't even have to merge all these. I'll just throw them all into my resources. And then when I'm searching for a Will Durant quote or something, bam, I'll find it.
Yeah, you can absolutely do that. Notion has a feature called synced blocks where you can actually select a certain block of text and just sync it to another place, and it'll live in both those places.
Yep.
So when I was really digging into the underpinnings of large language models and learning about tokenization and attention, I had tons of articles I'd clipped from the web. But then I also made what I would call a synthesis page and just synced a lot of those notes to the synthesis page. So I have one page, which is all of my notes and observations on tokenization or the linear algebra beneath it and that kind of stuff.
Oh, and now we've stumbled into an important part of a second brain database where one page or whatever block we're talking about of information can link to another. I'll show that in a little bit, where I have certain pages or blocks that there's one thing that I already summarize something similar or aligned or a subset of or a broader context of or whatever, and then I can link to that. So I'm within one, and if I want to think, I don't want to forget about that other thing that's very aligned, I can put that right in the inline copy, and you're one click away. And I assume Notion has the exact same thing, right?
Notion does have that linking. And yes, so I guess we can separate it between just normal linking and then backlinking, because I'm sure some people are going to think of Rome Research and Obsidian style backlinking when we're talking about this. Notion does have backlinking, but it's not very good because it just puts the backlinks at the top of the page. There's not block level backlinking like Obsidian has. However, you can do it. And just regular one directional linking is very good in Notion. You can just type, I think it's bracket, type the name of the page. Boom, you've created a link. Easy. For people who want to really get into building that web of connected information, something like Obsidian might be the one, the app they might want to look into, because it is built for that purpose.
Yeah, it's exactly everything's linked to each other, and you don't. I didn't like it as much because I just felt like it was almost overwhelming. The web was too webby. I actually sort of like the left side sort of overarching structure that you can have. In Obsidian just feels like a bunch of stuff piled on top of a table. And you can connect them all together, but I don't know. It was just a bit much.
I would say in Obsidian, you can accomplish pretty much anything you want. So if you wanted this sort of drill down structure, you can absolutely get it in Obsidian. But in many cases, you do have to go get third-party plugins. Sometimes you might even find yourself writing custom CSS to make it look the way you want. It's very hands-on. So personally, I've spent a good amount of time in Obsidian, and there are people on my team who actually prefer Obsidian for their personal task manager, or not task manager, but for personal note-taking. Having tried them both, I still like Notion.
Yeah, no, I'm much more soul. I would be Notion miles ahead of Obsidian. I'm sure it's great. And I'm sure there's somebody that's listening that says, you guys are wrong. But for me, so on this light idea of linking, so here's this file. Now I'm down in the structure here.
Oh, I love these kinds of pages. Turns of phrases, quotes, great ideas, just collecting small little snippets in a single place.
Yeah, I'll literally be watching the evening news and there's a commercial and there'd be some little turn the phrase and where there's a hill, there's a way, or turn every moment into momentum, or slow and strategic win the race is sort of steady. I like that. Remove to improve. So when I was doing the
I love this one.
pass through of Give to Grow, of course, a product plug. You have to do that on a podcast. But, this will be out in August, our next book. When I did the final pass, I had all these cool turns of phrase I wanted to put somewhere, and I didn't know where. So I'd saved those till the end, and I made one last smoothing over the writing. Like we were probably in the 15th edit per chapter. Like we had really landed the manuscript, but I think it got a lot better because we put in all these fun little turns of phrase that are sort of delight and surprise.
I'm making my own turns of phrase note right now.
And it's so
love
easy.
One of them. You have one of them that says selling is repelling. The more you sell, the more you repel, which is fantastic. And I mean, we were literally just talking about Obsidian and Notions. Like some people are going to say, no, you're wrong. I like Obsidian better. Well, yeah, you're always going to repel people because everyone wants different things.
Yeah, exactly. And then back to our linking idea, what I put at the top is, don't forget, here's topics for our monthly newsletter, Grow Big Playbook, because sometimes these little turns of phrase can actually be a topic like remove to improve. That's a really cool potential topic for a whole newsletter. And I can just click right over to those. I can see a little headline that lets me see into it. And then I've also got another one called Good Words. Like these are just good words that I've just started to track really recently. Like instead of a client saying the cost is something, we should say to the client, the investment is going to be something.
Right.
Cost sounds like the money's going away. Investment sounds like you're going to get a return. So we actually, about a year ago, we started saying every time we talk about our investment, we don't say fees, we don't say cost, things like that. To run a program like that, to train 20 people in 6 months, it's really transformative. The investment for that will be blank. And that just lands better with people. So anyway, those are those. So to pop back up a level, inbox, I can't share the client notes, but what's interesting about that is I do them by level that the client could say yes or no to it. So for one client, it might have different, like client name dash, what's the opportunity? And then if they don't purchase something, I can put that down in archive. I can keep it there, but I've got all my notes right there. Some people put that in a CRM. I find it a lot more helpful here because it's, again, everything in one place. Strategic partners, similar, but these are people that we would go to market together with. So there might be technology companies like CRMs or other training companies that train a different thing. Well, you can see, I've only just started using this a few months ago. We were using our CRM before for this, but I've already got 45 notes in there. Well, these are people that I want to have a deep, meaningful relationship with, and that's very mutually beneficial. So I want to remember, what are their goals? What are they trying to do this year? How can I be helpful? What can we do together? Things like that.
And so this is one note per partner, I'm guessing?
Yep, that's exactly right.
Perfect.
And then I append to it on the way up. So I always keep the most recent stuff at the top. So I'll say like 2024-04-09 call with Jane, and then it will have our notes from that one. But I'll have the call right before that below it. So when I'm getting ready for a call, I know exactly where to go. I see the last conversation we had. I might have a quote like, don't forget to bring up with Jane, see how the soccer tournament was with her kids last time we talked. So I see that little remember, and then bam, I write the new stuff and keep it all in one place.
That's fantastic. Does Craft have properties, or is it more just pages?
They're more like, well, tell me the difference. I may not know.
So say in a Notion database, I could have all those notes, but I could also have like a date property that's like, this is this client's birthday. And so somewhere else I could make like a calendar view, like just make sure every week I check on client birthdays and if I want to send somebody a gift or something.
Yeah, I don't think so. And I think my guess is that Notion is just like 10 times more capability than Craft. Like the cross-linking is here. They're starting to build in a little AI, but I think you see it's almost just like if I go into book marketing, so there's some advertising we're going to do. Here's some of the original blurbs and endorsements. Those are coming in, and they're coming. Oh, look, there's Tiago.
Oh, hi, Tiago.
Yeah. Hi, Tiago. Hi, Michael. Hi. These are just.
And you mentioned Chad earlier, I think.
Yeah, Chad Cannon's down here. I couldn't put this down. Decades of Wisdom past these pages. So they're just starting to come in. We've got about 50 people that have said they're going to give endorsements. So I'm trying to keep in one place so I can send them to, a book outlet, or eventually these will be on the website, things like that. Let me pop up for here. What are you seeing so far? Because I feel like I'm getting this free ability for you to look at this and see what am I missing?
No, this is great. So, I mean, this is the thing that I think about. I'm a big proponent of Notion, and I love the fact that I can build with databases and I can do things with properties. But I want to point out that for anybody watching this who thinks, well, the simplicity of most systems seems amazing here, if that's what's calling out to you, then that's what you should follow. Some
Yep.
people want simplicity. Some people are just like, I just want a little thing on the left where I can drill down into my folders, and then I want a nice note-taking area. Craft is fantastic for that, especially if you're a Mac user only. I don't think they have
Right.
Windows apps or web apps or anything like that, so you kind of need
Yep.
to be a Mac person.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're like me and you're like, I love the idea that I could have a client notes database where I have all my interactions and notes in that note-taking page of the client, but I also just have a little birthday property, and I could make myself a
So
calendar
good.
called Client Birthdays and see it on my calendar. Notion would be awesome for that.
Yeah.
So it really
Notion-
just kind of comes down to what's the level of capability and customizability you want versus the simplicity you want.
Yeah. And just while we're thinking about this, what are other options out there? I mean, I guess there's Evernote, there's Apple Notes if you wanted to go super basic, there's Microsoft OneNote, things like that.
Yeah, so I'll put it this way. If you want something that is closer to the all-in-one side of the spectrum, there's not a ton of other options. So there's Notion. There are things like ClickUp, which are a little bit less customizable and more just like they pretty much built out all the features as applets and put them all in one product.
Yep.
I would say the closest thing to Notion is another product called Coda, which is probably like, I would describe it as Notion for engineers. So it's even more capable than Notion in certain areas, but it's a little bit like, I would say, Android to Apple's iOS, where it's a bit rougher around the edges in feel, especially on the mobile end in my experience. But
Yep.
there's like, if you want to go crazy into formulas and all that kind of stuff, like Coda is kind of amazing. And then on the simpler side of the spectrum, there's what I like to call a productivity system. We can call it Second Brain. That's just basically where you use single purpose apps in a collection instead of trying to do everything in one place. You give up certain things like the ability to say, like, see all of your tasks and notes on one page.
Right.
Say you just grab Evernote or Apple Notes as your note-taking app, and you grab Todoist or Microsoft To Do as your task management app. You've basically got the two main pieces of the puzzle right there with very little setup needed. You are more on rails, but for a lot of people, those rails are totally fine.
Yeah. No, that's super interesting. And I think like I had to build all this stuff out, like the various categories and things like that. But if somebody if they just wanted to start with Notion, more robust long-term, and there's the best of both worlds is they pay $129 or whatever, and they get your Ultimate Brain because it's already started. And 10 years from now, you have the most robust thing. So as things are added, they're just going to be added faster, I think, to Notion, just because the community is bigger than say Craft.
Yes, definitely a bigger community than Craft. That's a huge advantage Notion has. Also, like for people who are very much into the idea of building out and customizing their own space and they want it to be, say, local first, Obsidian also has a very, very big community. So I like Notion. It's much more focused on collaboration as well. So I don't think we talked about it much on this episode, and maybe it's a thing for another episode, but Notion is fantastic for teams. In particular, I think it's fantastic for creating wikis and databases of processes and reference information for teams, onboarding information, stuff for your PA, things like that. Like it's fantastic because the level of collaboration and multiplayer nature of it is, I think, second to none. Whereas something like, I think Craft is fairly single player. Obsidian is very single player.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah. So you're building, this is for later, but you're building some Notion templates for teams too.
Yes. So one of the projects we're working on right now is just called Notion for Teams, at least working title. That's going to be not just a template. It's going to be a template in course and potentially community. And I think that will be very important because templates are great for individuals. I think for a team to invest in Notion, there's a bit more education that needs to go into it, particularly having somebody who's in charge of keeping Notion organized and building it out the way the team wants it, and then making sure everyone else on the team knows where stuff is.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So we'll stay tuned at thomasjfrank.com for that. Okay, well, to finish this up, when we think of, again, I think of areas as like projects that don't have an end date. So relationships, travel, that there's like places I might want to go to, investing, including like there's a whole thing on our investment strategy at home. I think that's just something really important. And then a lot of other like more like grab the information, sort of like it could be in resources, like some articles I thought were really powerful, but in that section, but it makes more sense to me to have it where I would see it. Family health, like we talked about health, like I've got like dietary formulas that are really working for me. And I just save little things that like, oh, wow, like here's some things about losing weight and a bunch of things. I got like just all kinds of things from what I ate in a certain day that
So this is
actually,
your log?
yeah, that's sort of like it's
Nice.
like the greatest hits of my log. So like, oh,
Gotcha.
I noticed I had 100% recovery, but I really worked out a lot the day before. What did I do,
Mhm.
that actually worked? And then I can go back and try to replicate that.
When you have, and you mentioned Ultimate earlier, is that like Ultimate Frisbee?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So like if I go out and play pickup for 3 hours, I might run like 7 miles, and then you just your hips and everything from that cutting motions. So I've got to, what did I do for recovery? Did I do foam roller? What did I eat? How did I drink? How did I get hydrated? Stuff like that. So I can go back and look and see when were my best, when did I exert myself and play really well and feel good the next day, so I could go back at it again. There's some magic to that. And that's
Yeah.
also individual. You can't just read a book on that. You got to like test it. So I
Yep.
go back and I find the ways that work. I know
Yeah, a
you work
lot
out
of
a lot. Similar?
self-experimentation. Though I work with a coach, so my actual workout tracking happens in a different app because he can see all of my sets and reps and things like that.
Oh, well, actually mine is in a way in different apps too. I'll just like pull screenshots out and summarize with my own notes of like what worked. So
Nice.
yeah. So one more thing and we can close out, but resources, this is so important. So I don't know if this is how you do it, but like information are just like sizes at different stores because I'm a medium in some places and large in
Oh,
others.
yep.
I want to remember. Forms were like some forms from some different training I went through. Like Pat Quinn is like the best I've ever seen at a speaking course. So like he's got a bunch of resources. I stick them there.
And what does forms mean specifically?
Oh yeah, so I can click on one. So these were like forms. Well, these were a bunch of notes I had from the course, but
Oh, actual forms. Okay.
yeah, but he has like it's literally forms like you fill out.
Mhm.
And that's I don't know if that came up right. No, it came up in a different screen. This is one thing I don't like about Craft is you don't actually see the PDF, but I think in Notion
Oh,
you actually see it.
Notion, you can embed it if you want to.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it attaches and then it opens in your browser.
Yeah, this is a bit of a drag. So like I have to double click on that. And I actually tried to show it to you, but it popped up in a different window. So,
Gotcha.
and then packing lists. So these are used to be in a separate app, but like these are just
Yeah,
like
those
my
are super helpful.
business cap packing list to it, but it's all in one place. And then broad content notes. These are like all, see, there's 104 there. It's taking a second. These are all these book summaries and articles that I found were super interesting that I can query at any moment. And then research. So 260 studies, and I created a little template that makes sense to me. And I put the headline of what the main part of it is up at the top. But I can query this database of 260 peer-reviewed all studies. And when I was writing Give to Grow, and I was like really leaning on this used to be like in an Excel file or in different places. And when I pulled it all into one place, everything just changed. Just so
Yeah, this is
good.
fantastic.
Yeah, so good. Cool. That's it. Well, Thomas, I think I've gone over the time we had.
No
But this
worries.
is-
I think we gave people a lot of ideas and inspiration. I think that's going to be the most important thing. Like
Yeah.
not trying to replicate every piece of my system or your system, but
Yes.
listening to that little voice going, I want that. Like when I saw your little turns of phrase note, I'm like, I need that in my system. I went and added it.
Yeah. Well, I learned it from my friend Glenn Jackson, who wrote a good book called Preeminence. It's really good. And I was like, Glenn, how did you come up with all those clever turns of phrase? He's like, oh, I just, when I hear something, I just put it in an Apple Note. I've been doing it for like 20 years. I'm like, how obvious is that? I've never done it before. Like the next day, I'm starting to keep this. So, man, Thomas, we'll put all the show notes in the show notes, but links to Flylighter, thomasjfrank.com, obviously the /brain for Ultimate Brain. I think that's a no-brainer for a lot of folks that want to dig into Notion, the YouTube videos, the voice automation, all the different things we talked about. This has been, I think we nailed it. We were trying to be super inspiring, super practical, and have massive utility. And hopefully we did that with all of our examples. Any
I hope
last
we did
words
as
of
well.
wisdom you'd share?
Start small and iterate with anything you're doing. I mean, we're talking about Second Brains here, showing off a lot of these systems that we've been building ourselves for years.
Yep.
Seriously, start small. If you want to get a template, get a template. If you want to start from nothing, start from nothing. And just, understand that it's going to grow and you're going to be able to shape it into what you want over time.
Yeah, that's the way to go. That's the way to go. I think it took me a couple months just to get everything in one place. And like I said, even hired somebody for a little bit of work there, a couple days of work just to do really tactical stuff, she did a great job. But I remember telling Becky, like after 3 weeks, I'm like, this is already worth it. And I only had a small percentage of things in there, but it was the most important things first. And man, the utility of a Second Brain database, like it was already good in a few weeks and it just gets better. The more you use it, just the better it gets.
It really does.
Cool. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Mo.
I got to tell you, I'm just an admiration of all the stuff you built. It's so powerful. So much utility.
Well, I'm glad you find it useful. And yeah, I'm excited about the ideas that I'm stealing from your own Second Brain.
There you go. All right. Well, I'll see you soon. Thanks, man.
See you soon, Mo. Thank you.
Bye.